And what's up, everyone? All the millions of viewers we have today. Welcome to the For the Boys podcast. Just thought I'll get the intro out of the way. This podcast is created for everyone to share their struggles with life. I guess anything. We started off as just the brothers, and then along this journey, we kind of heard stories from our women, our queens out there, and just hearing that, I guess everyone goes through that sort of that struggle in life, and that's why we created this platform. This platform is a safe platform for everyone to jump on, share their journey, and I guess the bigger picture here is just to help someone going through troubles. We all got our own stories, and I guess that's the way, and this is how it's all created. I'm Teza, by the way.
Swinging the second. Whether you're tuning in tonight or listening through our audio podcast, thank you for joining us. Just a disclaimer: we're professionals, but just like those who said, we're not professionals, but just like Tessa said, we just come on, share our stories, share our truths, in hopes that someone else there can relate and hopefully see, that we got through it, so they can as well. Just sharing. I think just trying to encourage our boys, our men out there, or the young ones to open up and share more, lean on each other, reach out, to be more vulnerable. Just trying to break those stigmas, Zeus.
Yes. Again, just want to say we are no experts at men's mental health or just mental health in general. And again, this is Mental Health Awareness Week. I just on Insta, I've been listening and reading a few stories, and how even though this week is dedicated to mental health, I think this thing called mental health, it happens 365 days a year, so it's just never ending, and we like to hear those stories on here. Shout out to the chat for coming through. If you got any questions for our guest, please throw them out there. Also, if you can share the live, it's always good to get people jumping in the chat, because we've been talking for how long? About 5 minutes straight. I think everyone doesn't. I don't think our chat wants to listen to us furthermore. But we on tonight's show, we got, I think, a beautiful Wahine that's doing amazing things in the space. She's an author, director, lawyer, and with all these come, and she's so humble. So I'd like to introduce to you REINA VAAI.
I thought it would be funny to hide. I was going to hide, and then I thought, no, don't do that. Hi.
I think that's what we wanted to do before jumping on this live. As soon as we were messaging each other, are you jumping on? Because we're a bit nervous, as you can see. My mate here usually doesn't stumble on his words, but he had to hold up and gather himself.
Good job.
Again, thank you so much for jumping on our little show, humble show. I will hopefully start off with how's your day been?
Tala for love, it's been very good. Like I said in our earlier chats backstage, I feel very lucky. I don't have to really worry about having a roof over my head. I've got food. Don't have to worry about the essentials. So lockdown for me is good, but also very conscious of the fact that there are so many that are experiencing harm or are suffering during lockdown. So my thoughts are definitely with them, especially this week.
Yeah, no, definitely. I should have said introduction first, then go on about. Sorry, because this is all over the place. A bit nervous, but introduction, and then we'll go on from there, please, sis.
Yeah, sure. Introduction. So my name is REINA. I'm from South Auckland. I'm Samoan. I have done a lot of different jobs, very lucky to have done those different jobs. But ultimately, I think those are probably the three most important facts about myself, is that I'm proud to be Samoan, proud to be South Auckland, and I don't have a third fact. I should have said two facts, sorry. Even I'm stumbling tonight. See? It's a vibe. We're all on the same wavelength. All good.
So where did this all start for you, REINA? Where did this your journey start?
Yeah, so I guess the most logical place to start is where I spent some of my childhood. So my family were living in Satawa in Savaii. We were there until I was about 3 or 4 years old. We then moved to New Zealand and lived in Mangere. And my parents worked really, really hard. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, but one thing that my parents, my mum in particular, was really focused on was education. And I think that's probably a common tale for a lot of Pacific families. And so that's what she really instilled in myself and my siblings. And I didn't know that I wanted to be a lawyer. I know that a lot of people, you know, young people, they know what they want to be. I've never been that type of person to be really sure about my path. And it's funny when people talk about like the different careers that I've been able to pursue, it's not because I'm like talented or anything like that. It's because I don't really like to just stay in one lane. I don't really like to box myself in. I don't like to be restricted by things. And I think growing up, because we didn't have much growing up, when I finally got the opportunity to go to university, I knew that I didn't want to waste it. And not to say that university is for everyone, but for me, that was my path. And that was my ticket out of poverty, essentially. So when I decided to do law, I saw it as an opportunity to help people. And when I said earlier about taking all these different paths, I'm really driven by my values. And I think some of the things that I've heard back is that it's been seen as a weakness to be driven by your feelings and to be driven by your intuition, because it could also be a massive downfall. And I totally acknowledge that. But for me personally, it has been the soul, or like the most motivating feature or aspect of my life, is to be drawn to doing jobs or drawn to serve, to help people in my community. So when I was a criminal defense lawyer out in South Auckland, that again was a major learning curve for me, because it was an opportunity to give back to the community that I grew up in. And it's funny when I look back on, you know, some people that I grew up with, and our lives haven't turned out the same. And some people have taken that path, and I've seen people from my old street appearing in court. And that experience itself has allowed me to reflect on how lucky I am. So I'm always like constantly finding myself in these situations where I have to check my own privilege. But ultimately, what really guides me is my values, and my values come from my journey, my parents' migration journey to New Zealand, my own migration journey in New Zealand, my own sense of, I don't know, like belonging, trying to find my own sense of belonging as a Samoan person in New Zealand. So I guess in a nutshell, that's pretty much my journey. Yeah.
I like how you say the journey itself is that you've learned from childhood to the area you've been brought up in, and you don't really how can I say it, you've kept yourself grounded throughout your whole journey. And I've listened to quite a few of your podcasts, and you're a lawyer, author, but you still go back to being Samoan, or that the ground that you stand on is that's how you show yourself. And it's always good to see, because when I did find out about you jumping on, it was just like when the brother reached out and said, "Oh, bro, REINA's jumping on." First of all, we said lawyer, and then we're like, "Oh no, don't bring a lawyer on here, because our show is not going to be the best to
We don't check facts on this
help her."
podcast.
So how are we gonna, but I guess the story, and on every show or episode, every podcast we've listened to, it's so good to see our people out there, and that's what we encourage. But did you, at one or any part of your growing up, did you know you were going to become a lawyer?
I guess in the back of my mind, I knew that I was going to go into something maybe like that. But my only sort of understanding of what a lawyer was when I was young was that, okay, what I saw in movies or what I saw on TV. And so I guess that's what I based my interest around. And when I went to law school, it was nothing what I expected it to be. And there weren't many Pacific Island law students at the time. And I'm so proud to see that there are way more currently than there were when I was in law school. But at the time, there weren't many Pacific law students. The support for Pacific law students was amazing from the Pacific law advisors, but it was quite a lonely journey. So while I was at law school, I didn't think that I would become a lawyer, because so many people at law school were so set on what they wanted to do. They knew that they wanted to go to a commercial firm, or they knew that they wanted to practice in family law, or they knew that they wanted to go into general practice. And that just wasn't me. I was interested in storytelling. I was interested in writing. I was interested in photography and art. And it seemed so weird that I was in law school yet exploring all these different ideas. And part of me felt a bit guilty for exploring those different ideas. Part of me felt like, should I have given this spot? Because at the time, there were over 1,000 law students applying to get into Auckland Uni Law School. There were only 300 spots. So sometimes you were made to feel guilty if you weren't pursuing law 100%. And then in my final year of law school, and I was still so clueless, people had already lined up jobs in their final year. I had no job. I was just like, I'm going to live with my parents full time. I'm going to stay there till I'm 50. I don't give a damn. I'm just going to write stories, whatever. If all of you guys, I don't care. But then in my final year, there was a woman that I had sort of like just really admired. And she didn't know me personally. I didn't know her personally, but I would see her around and she would do speeches, and she was this Tongan woman. And this Tongan woman was advertising for like a law clerk, which someone that does admin work. And she needed, because she had just set up her firm a couple of years before. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to be a lawyer, but I want to be like this woman. Like, she's just so badass. She is so generous and she's so confident. Like, I want to be like her. And so I applied and I got the job. And then when I started working for her, I then graduated, and she's now, that woman is actually Judge Soana Moala. She was the first ever Tongan judge to be appointed. And she has been such an incredible mentor and an incredible inspiration. And she's actually the only reason why I'm a lawyer now. I never ever thought that I would become a lawyer, because to become a lawyer, it was really, really competitive. You had to be like top of the pops. Like, you either had to know someone, and I didn't know anybody. I didn't know any lawyers. And a lot of law students were connected because they came from really rich families. And when you come from a rich family, you have access to resources, and those resources include people. So you can just say, oh, hey, yeah, my dad's a judge. He can connect me with this person, with this partner, and I can get this. So the legal profession is about who you know, who you're connected to, because your reputation is so important. I knew nobody, but this Tongan woman took me in, and I became her junior. Along with her law partner was actually another Tongan male who is also incredible. And I learned from the best people. And it wasn't just about learning how to be a lawyer. I learned how to be a good person in the legal profession, how to not let go of your culture, how to not be afraid of challenging norms, how to walk proudly as a Pacific person in this really white profession. And so I've always taken my learnings from there. And without that opportunity, I never would have been able to get everything else that's flowed on. So I'm huge on trying to give back. And sometimes like my schedule doesn't always allow, and I obviously don't have a firm where I can take people in. But when you said before, Tez, about, you know, helping people in those values, I've had the privilege of learning from so many good people, not just within my family, but in a professional capacity as well. So that's been, I just feel really blessed and really privileged to have been able to watch that. And I totally believe in positive role modeling. And you know what you guys are doing with this podcast is awesome, because there are a lot of Pacific males in the criminal justice system. And I think one of the many huge issues is a lack of positive role modeling. And now that with social media, say, for example, anyone can jump on this live from their room, from wherever, and listen and see you guys and think, oh, that's really cool. Or listen to what you guys are talking about and be like, I really enjoyed that talanoa, you know? I've learned something, I've grown from this. So I think that visibility and positive role modeling has helped me so much that I really believe that it's actually a really powerful way to connect with people. So yeah.
You spoke on Judge Moala being one of your inspos.
Yeah.
Who were do you have any others like through law school?
Through law school, I would probably say that she was like my biggest, and I think she's been a positive role model and mentor for so many Pacific people going through law school. Recently, I've had the opportunity to get to know Tiana Epati, who is the very first Pacific person or person of colour appointed to be the president of the New Zealand Law Society. And if you look at all the previous presidents, so she's pretty much the leader of our whole profession. If you look at all the previous presidents, they all look the same. And Tiana, like Soana, cares about young people, cares about Pacific people. So yeah, I would say she's also someone that I really look up to.
As a Pacific Islander, most Pacific Islanders growing up that I knew was all about sports, and you know their background is like, play rugby or play netball. Was there any part? Did you play sports when you're younger, or was that something that you wanted to do as a dream job? Or
it's honestly, that's so funny, because growing up, I was really bad. I am really bad at sports, and for me, I don't know, I couldn't get it, and I never got into teams, but I still always tried out. I always tried out for sports. And what's interesting is that as an adult now, reflecting back on those things when I didn't get into sports teams and I wasn't always picked to go and play for, whatever team, I realized that all those moments where I was rejected, and I know obviously it was just because my lack of talent, which I totally accept, but those experiences helped me to really handle having people say no to me, or having people to say, you're not for this job, or you're not going to get this role, and all those, or you're not getting this scholarship, which has happened heaps, so many times. But I think it's important for children or young people to experience those losses at an early age, because once you get into it, you actually become a bit more resilient, and you learn how to protect yourself, or you learn healthy ways to respond. So no, I wasn't good at sports, but in a way, I'm really grateful that happened.
Sorry, I should have did more research about this. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Don't worry.
You also said it's good to have kids experience it at that age, but in this kind of the era that we're living in now, is that they're handing out participation awards for anyone because they don't want people to, as you say, fail.
Yeah.
And I see it a lot too. It's all over social media.
Yeah.
Because do you think like the kids these days, are they? I wouldn't say more soft, but their feelings are more attached to like if they lose, like they take a bit of that more harder.
Mm.
Do you
Yeah.
reckon that's the like this era here?
Maybe I'm not too sure. I'm not too familiar with how kids are going. I mean, young, when you're talking about participation certificates, but I do think that failure, what you raised was about failure. I do think that it's important to talk about it. And I do think that it's important for kids to fail, because failure is so often seen as like this really negative or heavy thing, massive
Yes.
experience. But actually, if you approach failure with a sense of positivity, and I know this sounds kind of messed up, but say, for example, if someone fails at something, I think they should be congratulated, because that is just part of life. But if you're only congratulated on the wins, then of course you're going to develop a complex. But if you're congratulated on failures as well, then what actually you're getting a pat on the back for is giving it a go. And I'm huge on just giving it a go, because so many people that I've met, Pacific people in particular, won't go for opportunities because they say, oh, I'm not good enough, or no, I'm not qualified enough. And I'm like, do you know how many times I've applied for things that I'm not qualified for? And sometimes by some stroke of luck, I get in. And I honestly believe that young people should be encouraged just to give it a go. And if they don't get it, then that's fine. Like
Then it's fine. Yeah.
earlier today, there was an opportunity that I thought that I was going to get, and I didn't get. I got a phone call today saying you didn't get it. And what was funny was that my immediate response was like, okay, all good. Let me see how to redirect this. And I was talking to a close friend of mine who said to me, aren't you like upset? I said, no, because I've had years of failure. And once you just get used to it, you know how to respond and how to react. And it's not a bad thing. Failure and rejection is just a normal part of life. And I think the earlier we get used to it and the earlier we learn how to navigate it, and it will look different to other people. We've all got different levels of resilience. But if you know how to respond, then you'll know how to overcome it.
Very nice. I have a question here from Claudia. Is your career as a lawyer what you expected it to be? And if not, how did reality differ to your expectations?
Oh, cool. I can see. Is that Claudia? Hi, Claudia. I went to school with Claudia.
She just mentioned it before, yeah.
Oh, awesome. I just saw it pop up thing. Yeah, so hi, Claudia. So as my career was what I expected it to be. I think in some parts it is. I expected to be a minority. I expected it to be difficult, but I didn't expect it to be as rewarding as it is. I didn't expect the level of privilege and the way that I could use my privilege to help. So in some ways, yes, in some ways, no. And in terms of the reality of being a lawyer, I used to think that maybe after a couple of years, after more time, that it would be easier. But I think, like I said about failure and rejection and all of those things about becoming resilient, I think we just learn how to cope and learn how to navigate different situations. Like, for example, I didn't really think that other lawyers or that in court, I would be confused for a defendant, for someone being charged with something, even though, I'm wearing a suit, I've got files in my hand. So apart from the color of my skin, everything else about me says that I'm a lawyer. But because I'm the same color as people walking in the dock, it's very easy for people to make those kind of comments. And these are people that have the same level of education as you, similar level of experience, yet not the same ethnic background. So I guess in some ways I didn't really expect to have those types of interactions, but in a sense I've learned a lot about how to deal with conflict. I've learned a lot about how to stand up for myself and how to stand up for others. So yeah, I think that is something that I really didn't really expect, but it happens a lot. And I think a lot of people don't talk about it because sometimes it's a bit embarrassing. One time I did talk about it. I did an interview with the Law Society and I told them about what had happened. And rather than getting like a response from other colleagues like, oh, hey, I read your article, that was awesome, I got maybe 2 or 3 positive comments. I mean, the rest, one of them came up to me, a Palangi lady came up to me and said, I never thought that about you. Why did you accuse us? So her name wasn't Karen, but it should be. And it was interesting that that was the response, rather than sitting down and saying, hey, I'm really glad that you spoke up and you said something. So that interaction reminded me, oh, that's why brown people don't speak up that much in this profession, because you get knocked down. Now I get it. I forgot. But again, like I said about rejection and failure and building resilience, we don't back down. We find another way and we keep climbing. And I think that's the only way to move forward, especially it doesn't even just only apply to the legal profession, it applies in so many other aspects of our lives. So yeah.
Just that unconscious bias, eh?
Yeah, it is. It is. It is.
How was I don't know how you like progress in court, but how was that first experience of you standing there, like certified, your lawyer, like?
I think it was pretty underwhelming, to be honest. Like my first appearance was underwhelming only because the person didn't turn up, and so I only said like 3 sentences. But every single time I do stand up, there are moments where I think, oh my goodness, I am so lucky. Like I'm so lucky, because if I didn't have like a good family, and if I didn't have role models that I could see and lean on, and if I didn't have this job, I could have been in that position. And that's never far from my mind. So what I've noticed is that some people, when they appear for their clients, or there are comments being made about clients in a really, I don't know, condescending way, it reminds me that people aren't aware of their own privilege. And for me, I don't see myself as any better than the person that I'm representing. I don't see myself any better than the family members that are sitting there crying in court. Like it's a horrible feeling. But I know what I can do to change the situation. I know what I can do. I know that I can be respectful. I can be empathetic. I can be kind. And I can explain things in the way that they understand, not using overly legalistic terms, because what help does that do? Nothing, you know? And so I think understanding, you know how in Pacific culture we've got the concept of the VAAI. So understanding the VAAI between myself and this other Pacific person, that doesn't go away when you're a lawyer. I don't stop being an island person from South Auckland just because I'm a lawyer, you know? So just always trying to maintain that. And I guess when I stand up in court, that's something that I'm very conscious of, because it's of the utmost importance.
And also as a professional, how do you put your feelings aside when you're going through a case? Because and just by watching TV, you know, there's a lot of lawyers out there that you know will go through a case that's really, you know, it touches the feelings. But how do you get through it and then like switch off or leave work at work, or go on about the rest of your day when you know you have to go back to it the next day or in a couple of hours to do more work?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I guess it's not really something that can always be turned off. And I became, when I was out in South Auckland and doing crim, I learned how to leave work at work. And one of the ways was I worked with an amazing bunch of people at this office called the Public Defence Service. And the Public Defence Service is the office in Manukau. It's one of the main law firms that looks after criminal defendants. And so we had an awesome group of people that we always just leaned on. We understood what each other were going through. We understood stress and pressure, because you can explain things to people who don't work in that area, but it's just difficult. It's easier if the other person has experienced it. So having that type of support was really good. For my first year of practice, and even this year, I have been seeing a psychologist. And so my psychologist is Samoan. She is amazing. And what she's really taught me is how to manage stress, how to manage conflict, how to look after myself. Even things like if I'm having a bad day, I will go and I'll do my nails, or I will go and I will buy myself an outfit, and things like that, you know. And it sounds so stupid to a lot of people. Like everyone's like, what a stupid girl. But it makes sense to me because it makes me feel better. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense to anybody else. And I think whenever I mention the word, I'm going to see my psychologist, people freak out, like, oh, are you crazy? Are you mental? First of all,
Yeah,
yes, I
that's what I
am
was gonna say.
crazy.
Yeah.
Not clinically though, you know. So it's about normalizing that and being like, hey, that's awesome. What's her name? I want to go too. So I've been making the most of it. I get 10 free sessions from my work. So I've just been making the most of it. And I think it's so cool to talk to someone that understands your cultural background. Like, for example, if I'm like complaining about my family, or I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going on, she just gets it and I don't have to explain it, you know? So yeah, that's how I've been looking after myself.
That's I like how you said, you go out and do your nails, or you go buy your outfit. I think I'm gonna
Yeah.
take that same advice and start buying myself stuff,
You're gonna paint your
because the
nails
house
as
has been
well?
crazy. Nah, jokes.
We're the nail salon.
Yeah, do my nails. Is there questions in the chat, Frankie?
There's quite a few. Just one from Pep. Being a Samoan lawyer, how do you cope with our Pacific community walking through the dock? Have you ever found yourself exhausted seeing how people walk through the dock, and how do you cope mentally and emotionally?
Oh yeah. So I feel like we've answered the second part of the question about coping. And I guess I should say it's never easy. It's a weird thing because you can't ever really get used to it, because it is heartbreaking. But on the other hand, it's such an important thing to be a Pacific lawyer and to be representing our people, because it allows us to help. And I think that's what I really focusing on how am I going to help this person, or how am I going to make this person into, put them in a better position than they were when I first met them. So a lot of things like that include finding them a place to stay. Even that's a difficult thing. Finding them a bail address, finding them rehab, social services to help with counseling, to help with their family, helping them to get a job. So it's all these really human issues that that lawyers can help with. So it's not just about reading the law and understanding what defences are available. It's also a big part of being a criminal defence lawyer, particularly in a community like South Auckland, is helping their full self, not just them that's been charged, but who they are as a full person, whether they've got a job, a family, drug issues, alcohol issues. All of those things are things that as defence lawyers we're called to help them with.
That's quite a lot, saying that you're probably like the last person they face before either they go in or have their freedom. Like, it's quite a lot to take.
Yeah.
Have you? I don't know if you're allowed to speak on it, but have you ever seen like a person twice? come through to
Oh,
you?
heaps. Yeah, and I guess it shows that like there's huge problems with the system, and if we're chucking people in prison and they're coming out and then doing the same thing, obviously it's not working. And I think what the system needs is transformative change. So we need leaders to be really brave, to be really courageous, and to walk with faith, and also humility to accept, okay, this system is broken. I've heard so many politicians say, the system is broken. And I'm like, yeah, but what are you doing to fix it? You have been elected into government to do something about this. So to be honest, I don't feel that hopeful. I know that there's a new court called Te Ao Marama that's just started in Hamilton, and they're looking at more holistic approaches to justice, but I would like to see more. I think that's a really positive step, but I think our people deserve more, much more. And I don't think that people end up in the dock by accident. It's funny because, of course, there's personal choice, and of course, I'm not defending what they've done. I'm not excusing their actions, but there needs to be more emphasis or a better review on how they got there, whether it's poverty, how do they get into drugs and alcohol. There are things that happen in people's lives that need to be acknowledged. So, and I think that's a job of a defense lawyer, is to tell that story.
You spoke on
And as
your
a
love for writing.
Mm.
So I'm like, what inspired the kids' book, like the series?
Yeah, so it was actually my job as working in crim, because I was talking to all these defendants, and because I'm quite an airy-fairy thinker. I'm not like a strict literal or logical thinker. I think when everyone's looking at straight lines, I'm thinking about stars and rainbows. So when I talk to defendants and I was asking them things like, oh, what was your dream when you were growing up? And then the next dot, people are asking, so this is a legal defense. And I was asking about their dreams and their hopes. And what I found was that a lot of them were saying to me, no one's ever asked me that, or why are you asking me this? Like, I've never ever heard anyone like ask me this. Why? And I would always ask, because I want to tell the judge that, when you get out of here, this is what you're going to do. And so as I was having these constant conversations, and mostly with young males, they were like, no one's asked me that. I don't know what you're on about. Like, why? And some of them would come up with answers like, okay, when I was 5, and they'd always say when I was 5 or when I was 6, way back. And so I knew that there was some desire or some passion that hadn't been untapped. And so at the time I was doing like workshops with students, like I was doing stuff with high school students, and I was doing stuff with primary school students, and I realized that actually the age that we need to get to them is much earlier, because when you're developing and you've got an interest, we need to be actively pursuing, like asking, what is the interest, even if they don't pursue it, even if they don't end up, even if they change their mind, but it's about instilling them with confidence. And I just totally believe in encouraging young people to believe that they can do whatever they want. And so that's why I started the children's book series, because I thought I can't go and visit every single child, but books can travel everywhere. And so that's why every book, I've written 4 books so far, every book is based on a Pacific Island kid and what they want to be when they grow up. And there's nothing fancy about it. I drop in a few rhymes, but nothing fancy. It's just 4 Pacific kids, 4 kids in South Auckland, just to be able to see themselves reflected, not just as characters, but as characters that are pursuing their dreams.
That's so amazing how you also use your experiences to kind of navigate you in life as well, and also to being an author. Um, we I had a chat with one of the boys about some of the stuff you're doing, and which is, it's always amazing seeing poly Māori people out there doing, bringing the best out of out of themselves, and also being a leader for us as well. Your journey, has it, and you said this before earlier about you're not about straight lines and everything. You try everything and everything and anything, and look how amazing it's been so far. But if you had to start life again or start again, would you follow the same route, or would you add stuff? I know you've done amazing things itself.
No, that's an awesome question.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Whether I would add, like, do more stuff or do less. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's a really good question. I haven't really thought about that, but would I do something differently? I don't think I would, to be honest. I don't think I would try and pursue another career. I think that I would, now that I'm, a bit older, I think that I would definitely, in terms of personal relationships, like friendships, I think I would do that differently. But in terms of career path, I don't think I could have ever planned this any better. But when I reflect back on what I could have done better, I think definitely friendships, because I was really drawn to people that were a bit toxic, and that didn't really help me in any way. And so I think that's probably one change that I would have made. And it's still something that I'm still going through, like still trying to navigate. And what I'm trying to be is, I read something on Instagram about being intentional about the people that you connect with. So being really purposeful. And back then I didn't really have the maturity to really understand how important that was. I think also maybe I would have done, if I could study again, I would have probably looked at doing psychology. Maybe. Yeah, I think I would have maybe majored in that in my arts degree rather than doing English. So yeah. But other than that, I'm very grateful, and I really can't imagine doing anything else, to be honest.
I'm sorry, I'm going back to the books. I saw you have the Champions for Change. Is that like the real life version of your book, like your books? What inspired you to start that, or is it like?
Yeah, it's so going back to what we were talking about positive role modeling. That's exactly what Champions for Change is. It's about putting people that you probably wouldn't normally hear about, like, say, for example, we had a journalist, and then we had a UFC fighter and a lawyer and a model who just came in and contributed and were so generous, and were like, yep, I'll make videos for these students. And it was so funny, the way that these students were interacting was so cool, because some students were like sending in videos asking the UFC fighter, can you beat up my brother? Or can I show you my moves? Like, it was just really funny. Like, just they felt like they could connect with this person who they'd never met before. And I think that's what it's all about, is just having someone to look up to. Whether or not, I know these kids won't grow up to become UFC fighters, but they just wanted to see, okay, there's someone that's pursued their dream. There's someone that's living the life that they've planned. And what's so sad is that we've got these interactions, right, with the kids, which are really positive. And then in my work as a criminal defense lawyer, I was seeing what happens if this passion isn't pursued, or what happens if things don't go well. So yeah, so Champions for Change is absolutely that.
Sorry, I was just gonna run some questions that's been posted through the chat. This one again from Pierre. Shout out to Pierre. REINA, with your experience, what has been a common behavior you have seen in our Pacific community that we as a wider community can help with? to reduce crime rates?
That's a really good question. I think more than behavior, what we need to be looking at is the what encourages the behavior, like what environment that behavior types, like say, for example, violent behavior or sexually deviant behavior, all of that stuff. So actually on that topic, one thing that I think is really important is communication. So I think maybe it's a generational thing, but as my parents, Pacific migrants, I would never go up to them and say to them, hey, I'm texting this guy, or hey, I'm having these problems at school, because I just didn't really have that relationship with them, only because, first of all, we only spoke Samoan at home. So I don't even think I even had the skills to even communicate, what liking a boy was, back then. And so having open communication with families in particular, I think families play a huge role in how a person ends up in the justice system. And there's a health model called the Whānau model, where it talks about what makes up a Pacific Island person's well-being. And the foundation of the model is family. And so I think families play a hugely critical role. And so if there's communication between parents and parents understanding what children are going through and having empathy and that level of support, goes a long, long way. And I think it's really sad sometimes when I've appeared for clients, island clients, and I'm looking for a bail address for them to go to, and I call their family members and they're like, no, we don't want him. He's caused too much trouble. And so obviously that demonstrates that something really badly has gone wrong, because I can't imagine it must have been a difficult thing for them to say no to this person, to say no to your son, or to reject your son because they've done something bad. And so I will never understand what that feels like, because I haven't been in that position. But of course we can empathize, and of course we can find ways to resolve that. So I think communication is hugely important, and feeling okay to go up to your parents, or feeling okay to go to someone and say, if it's not your parents, your siblings or someone close to you, and say, look, I'm feeling really angry, or I'm really pissed off, or I want to go and do this, X, Y, Z. And it needs to be a trusted person. And we also need to know what kind of language to use to encourage them. So again, it's like positive role modeling again, whether it's within your families or close social networks, communication is of the utmost importance.
Also, I like how you say communication, because we've had plenty of stories shared on our podcast about how our parents have grown up to, their teaching obviously comes down to us, and being a polymodal male, it's always frowned upon to talk about your feelings, and that's I think something we're trying to implement or change, because and at times we fail, and I still do, because it's just relearning how to teach our kids not to be, I guess, keeping everything in, carrying the load, as they say. Yeah, and then just talking to a few of the boys who have done the same thing, and it's been hard to express themselves when they don't have someone, a role model, doing the same. Do you think or do you see that in your professional career? A lot of this is the same, like us men not opening up.
Absolutely. And that's why I think this podcast is really cool. And what I've seen is that there've been quite a few island males running these podcasts. And I think that it's an awesome way to connect, and an awesome way, even if, say, for example, say a male doesn't feel like they've got friends, or that they feel like they can't really talk to anyone, listening and learning and hearing you guys talk amongst yourselves and seeing your friendship, I think that's incredibly inspiring. Especially during lockdown, where people can't physically connect. But what you said about, being a role model and walking the talk is actually, I think, life-changing. So, for example, if you've got a son and you are actively, you're showing your emotions and you're aware that your son is watching, that's incredibly powerful, because what your son is going to do, he's going to grow up to be a man that is really comfortable with his emotions, really comfortable with communicating, really aware of himself and his limitations. And I think being suppressed and not knowing how to express yourself in a healthy way I see it a whole lot. And sometimes, if you're a woman and you're defending men, they don't respect me. And that's something that I come across all the time. Like, they'll swear at me, they'll threaten to kill me, all of those things. It's part of, sad to say, but it's almost accepted and part of the job. You accept that these are damaged people that need help. Not all of them, but there are some. And so I think, being a positive role model, knowing how to teach your sons how to communicate, how to respect others, how to respect women in particular, is so important. And especially coming from male to male, where that respect is there, that trust is there, that's crucial. Because I can't go up to a guy and be like, hey, you need to respect, because they're not going to listen. But male to male, that connection, that VAAI, is hugely important. Yeah. And powerful too.
That's why, that's why I applaud the works of the other podcasts and like the barberhood. How the barbers are all coming together
Awesome.
as a
Yeah.
collective, as a shoulder and ear for the community, for the boys. You just to walk in to get a haircut, but they're also offloading to the barbers what they're going through and such. So it's good to see our generation like seeing the problem and acknowledging and figuring out ways to do better and teach the younger generations or show them like what hasn't been taught to us, because our fathers were just black and white. Like their generation was just straightforward, no affirmations or like like that. It's hard for them to show affection or love because they don't know
big time.
like especially Samoans, like but you just know. No, they do.
Yeah.
But they know.
No,
I'm still here, but but it's good. Like seeing more and more of our males acknowledging and figuring out ways to like do better for the younger generations.
Yeah, and what you guys are doing is like transformational change. Sorry, you go.
No, you go. You go.
No, that was the end of my cool story.
I was just gonna say, was there any like being a Samoan when we're coming through the law? Was there any like say doubts, like people are looking at you for like or looking at you funny because
every single day, all the time. And it's funny because I had a case that was kind of difficult, and it was with a non-Pacific person, and the whole time I was telling my Palangi friend, I said, this family doesn't like me because I'm brown. Like I just sense it. Like there's just something off. I'm I feel like there's something that's not clicking with us, because it became really difficult. And then when my Palangi friend interacted with the family, it wasn't until months later he told me, he said, remember that case that you had? I just wanted to tell you that I've had time to reflect, and they were 100% racist. And at the time, he didn't appreciate what they were saying about me behind my back, because he just thought, oh, no, they're just upset because, the person might be going to prison and all these things. But what he explained to me, that later he realized that their comments were, they were blaming me for their son's actions. And that happens quite a bit. It's not just the blame, it's also the mistrust. Like, you know, sometimes I'd go down to the cells and I would have like a junior lawyer observing me. And sometimes a junior lawyer would be like an older Palangi male or just Palangi in general. And I would have clients on the other side of the cells, and they would ask, oh, okay, so I don't want to listen to you. What does he think? And I was like, it's his first day, buddy. Ask him what he thinks, and you're going to stand there. So it's that type of, those types of interactions that you just have to deal with. So it goes beyond just side eye. It goes beyond just funny looks. It is just straight up like, you don't belong here, or you don't belong in that role here.
And would you say that that's been part of your career as well? Your progress through law?
Yeah,
Did you?
it's been like racism and discrimination. Is it what you mean? Has it been part of my entire career?
Yeah, just yeah, that's it. Yep.
Yeah, it has. It absolutely has. And I thought I started to normalize it, and I started to think, oh, that's just what happens. And I became really desensitized. And what I realized was that it doesn't matter how qualified you are. It doesn't matter how much experience you have. If you are a brown woman in that job, you are going to be disrespected no matter what. No matter what level you are at, you are going to be disrespected. The Law Society did a survey in 2018, and it showed that the highest rate of bullying and harassment were women working in criminal law. And a lot of Pacific women, even though there aren't many of us, we go into crim because we want to go serve our communities. We want to go help people. So we're part of that number.
It's funny you say that, because I went to court for a family member, and I think we saw a Pacific Māori guy just standing in the dock and sitting with all the lawyers. So I don't know how everything's placed, but one of the family members, because he didn't understand what was going on, asked this, may have been a lawyer, I actually don't know, but and he could speak Tongan. And what the lady was trying to say is like, can you tell the judge, even though I think the lawyer was a white lawyer, can you tell the judge that my son is innocent? But she kept getting louder and louder throughout the whole time. And because our people don't know what to do, and obviously I didn't know what to do, because this was my first time there. I didn't know what to say. But I think the security at the end of during that whole time basically escorted her out for yelling in court, because she didn't know what she was doing. Do you get much of that, like our turning up to court and people, or us, we don't know what to expect, or not knowing what to do?
It happens. It happens a lot, because it's such a strange place. There are so many different things happening. You've got people, all these lawyers in suits, and then you've got the general public, and then you've got people coming in from Mount Eden prison, you've got security guards, you've got court staff, you've got the judges. So there's a whole range of things happening, and it happens quite quickly. And I will be honest, sometimes I because I was on my feet so much, and it was honestly like racing back and forth trying to appear for different people, what I forgot was how daunting the experience actually is, especially if you're a first timer. So I think what actually might be helpful in court is, in hospitals, you've got navigators, like community navigators, that sit down and explain to people like, okay, this is the doctor's going to come in, you're going to see the nurse first, this is a treatment plan or whatever. And I think that needs to happen in court, because when you explain to someone, you've got a case review hearing on this day, and then before then I have to file a case management memorandum, so I have to have negotiations with the police, and then you can elect trial or whatever, and we need more disclosure. So there's all these different things happening, and this person is sitting there like, what? And so I definitely think what you've just explained is very normal, and it's a shame, because especially if you don't have someone who speaks the same language, or someone who understands, okay, this is a mother who's very distressed. It only takes 2 minutes to turn around and say, I'll talk to you outside. Let's go have a chat outside. It only takes 2 minutes, but that 2 minutes can help de-escalate the situation. Just sitting there and being like, okay, they're obviously speaking a different language. Let me find out what that language is. Let me get an interpreter. Let me get someone who can help. That doesn't take long. But unfortunately, people think that their time is golden and they don't want to give it. So that's the reality.
With your books and your blog, do you have any other writing ventures coming up or thinking of?
I don't have any writing ventures coming up, because I was just coming out of like a pretty big hearing. And so I haven't been able, for like the past, I would say, year, 11 months or 10 months, I've been committed to this project that I've been working on at the Royal Commission. So I haven't really been able to explore other things just yet. But so I think once that's all wrapped up, then I'll be able to look elsewhere and explore that. But at the moment, no immediate plans.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? 5 to 10 years?
I have absolutely no idea. I feel like I have always just gone wherever the wind takes me. And I think it's also part of my personality as well. I'm not like a big planner. I don't like alarms, to be honest. I like my body just naturally waking me up. I'm like, okay, if the Lord wants me to be on time, then I will be on time. If the Lord does not wake me up in time, then take that up with the Lord. Take that up with the universe. I'm sorry. So it's probably a really poor attitude to have, but it is the way that I operate. So I don't sit down and think, okay, by this age, I'm going to be, I have a lot of friends that do that. A lot of my lawyer friends do that. I think it's also a big lawyer trait to be quite structured and organized, but I can't be bothered. As things come up, I feel like I just get a feeling and I just say, yeah, I really want to do that. And yeah, I just trust my gut a lot. And it sounds so wishy-washy, but it's never, ever led me astray. I'm not even an overly religious person. I just feel like whatever I'm interested in at the time is what I'm interested in. Like, I hadn't posted on my blog Instagram in like almost a year. And then suddenly I got into TikTok, and then I was posting like 4 TikToks. And I don't know whether that will continue next week, because, it's just whatever happens, happens.
So what's the latest TikTok moves?
What was the latest one that I did? I did one on, I found a voiceover that was like talking about empowering women. So then I was just adding photos to it of really, really cool women of color. And the last one that I did was of Kylie Quince, who's also a very influential and inspirational person. She's the very first ever Māori Dean of Law. So it's funny, a response that I got from another amazing woman, she said to me, it's so messed up that, you're celebrating all these firsts at this time, because this should have happened ages ago. And I agree. I totally agree. And it's like what I was saying before about, it's, if you are brown, you can be easily ignored, regardless of your qualifications, regardless of your talent, regardless of your experience. So you have to work twice as hard just to be recognized. And the women that I posted on the blog, on the Instagram, they've been incredible for years. And it's just that New Zealand has just suddenly woken up and thought, okay, now I see you. So yeah.
Stay woke, New Zealand.
Stay woke.
You got questions from the?
It's from REINA, are you in a relationship? If so, how do you cope and find balance?
Yeah,
Yes.
I am. And how do I cope and find balance? I think it's really important what people, I guess what, especially in high school, I think what people need to know is that the person that you decide to be with, like long term, is going to have a huge influence on your life or help you direct or which path you're going to take. And I think finding balance for me is, I don't know, I always find time to hang out with people that I love. I always find time to, it doesn't matter sometimes, like I've got two nieces and one nephew, and I would leave work at lunchtime, even though I had a court appearance at 2, I'd leave at 1 just to make it to a cross country, and then I'll drive back to make it in time to 2. So I never ever put work above the people that I love. I think that that's a really poor way to, live your life. And I think it can make people really unhappy. And all the things that I do, I know I always get side eyes because I would go off, even when I was filming like a little doco, I was filming it on a police officer who's amazing. Her name is Fio Fatmosili, who was the Black Ferns captain at one point. And she was working as a police officer and I was in court. So I had matters in court, but my cameraman could only make it from a specific time. So I did my things in court. Then I ran out across the road to the police station, filmed her stuff, and then I ran back. And while I was at the police station, my boss walked past and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just filming." And she was like, "I don't even want to know. You're off doing something again." And I was like, "Yeah." So people became used to me doing that type of stuff, even though it was considered unusual. And so what I would say is, whatever balance looks like to you, do that. And I think don't feel guilty. I've met so many people that feel guilty about like, "Oh, I feel guilty, I haven't done enough work." Who cares? Like, to be honest, so, some institutions don't even care if you're sick or if you're going to die. So, live your life as if it's your life. So whatever it looks like to you, whatever makes you happy, however selfish it may make you feel, just do it because you only have one chance.
Thank you, chat. Man, that's really good to hear too, because like you said, some jobs, companies, you're only a number, so do what you got to do. So we've actually come to that part of the show where we try and share like a positive or advice to leave with our chat or whoever is listening in the future on our podcast platform. We'll hand it over to Swanky and then we'll keep going.
Oh yeah. First and foremost, just want to say thank you to the sister REINA for jumping on a little show, joining us, taking the time out of her nights to share her story. But my message tonight will be reach out, as I say every week, reach out to your family and loved ones that you haven't spoken to in a while. Sometimes we reach out. You don't have to have the answers, just lending, just listening, just lending your shoulder or ear so that you can just go off. Like you don't have to have the answers to anything. You don't have to solve or fix anything. Just have to, sometimes they just need you to listen. So just reach out to your family and loved ones that you haven't seen in a while, or even just check up on, family and loved ones. That's it for me tonight. Again, thank you.
Thanks, Urs. Again, thank you to the chat for coming through. Man, I think there's millions of questions that we may have bypassed. But again, thank you to REINA. For giving up your time. I'm sure you'd probably be or want to do something more important than jumping on this
No,
podcast. So we
it's
thank you
awesome.
so much. I think one thing that you've brought up is the communication part. I fail at it most of the time, but just talking and having that a safe place to do and communicate with loved ones. During this lockdown, it's been hard for I think most people in Auckland, and not having to physically see our family. So one thing I have been doing is just reaching out to, like Swanky said, talking to family and that I don't usually see, and I think one of them would have been my brother, who everyone's got their own life, doing their own things, and I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks haven't heard from him, and I had to give him a call, video call, because social media, the platforms that they have, it's so easy to jump on a phone and video call. So communication, easy to do, jump on the phone and just talk. Again, thank you, and I'll pass it over to REINA if she's got all the advice in the world for us.
So something positive to share?
Yeah, something positive.
Yeah, cool. Just reflecting on what you both said, I think one last thing that I just want to say is that, I mean, one, I've really enjoyed being on here, so I'm grateful that you've asked me to come on and share. And secondly, one really important thing that I want to say is that it's actually really cool to be imperfect. I think I've met so many people who are so driven by this idea that I need to be this, or I need to be perfect, and I need to look like I've got everything together. That's really boring. No one likes perfect people. I hate that. And I think it's really cool to show that you are flawed. We're all flawed. It's really cool to be like, okay, that embarrassed me. I'm going to laugh about it. Or I failed at this. Let's laugh about it, or let's try and redirect. And if you're not okay with laughing, I think that if you fail, maybe think about it in a way like a comeback story, thinking, okay, this is going to be my comeback story. And just, don't be stressed about being perfect or having to have your shit together, because it's not realistic. And I think that's where people become really anxious, or they become upset, because if there's one little chink in their so-called perfect armor, then everything else falls to pieces. But to build resilience, we need to be open to failure and celebrating rejection and being so happy with being imperfect, because no one's perfect. And I love telling people about my mistakes, and I love laughing at how I got rejected, like my phone call this morning, I haven't even told people about this, and here I am telling everyone on the podcast. But it's okay, you got to walk the talk. It's okay. So yeah, really, really grateful to have met you both, even though it's online, but and grateful for all the questions for everyone watching.
Yeah, and I think the chat agrees with us too. Thank you for sharing. Again, sorry, just quickly before we end, I would like to just give a short shout out to our sponsor, at Mask Familiar. So if you are in the Auckland area, or in New Zealand, at Mask Familiar, they do customized masks. So and if you're traveling on public transport, obviously it's mandatory to wear. So reach out to the team at Mask Familiar for your masks. So thank you again, Sis REINA, and thank you to the chat. This is For the Boys podcast. I'm Teza, by the way.
I'm Swanky the second, and that is the amazing.
And you have the beautiful REINA.
So far, so what?